I've been thinking quite a bit about how to best help you out as an up and coming knife maker. You've put in a great deal of effort, and when I look back on my own career, there were a lot of things that were very helpful, a lot of things I was taught, a lot of things that I discovered, a lot of things I figured out on my own. And I think probably the biggest advantages, the largest gains, came through perspectives, things that are, unlocked within your mind. So what I'd like to share with you is the idea of principles of automation. So you're probably wondering right now, what does that mean? Well, principles of automation, I don't think I've heard that anywhere else. As far as I know, it's a me thing, but if not, apologies. So principle of automation is anything that takes a task off your plate and does it for you in exchange for money. Because when you say automation, a lot of people think about things like robots, robot arms, CNCs, robot arms loading parts in and out of CNCs. And those things are great, don't get me wrong. But philosophically, I think it's very important for you to understand as early as possible that the principles of automation is something within your grasp, right? So, like a lot of guys have been talking with me about water jet cutting, and you need to talk to me about water jet cutting. That's often the first bit of leverage that a maker will get, but not always, right? So anything that can get taken off your plate in exchange for money that can happen in parallel with you doing something else is applying the principle of automation, right? So, you probably get somebody to do your taxes. That's automation. You're paying for that to happen for you automatically, or as I like to say, automagically, right? A little joke around the shop. So yeah, a lot of guys, maybe they're getting their water jet cutting done, and that is applying automation. Huge, huge boost. I've talked about that in other videos. The other thing is heat treat. A lot of guys are paying to have the heat treat done. Fantastic. Get it done by a reputable place, and boom, it's done automatically, right? So if you get your blanks water jet cut and heat treated, and maybe the water jet place did some drilling, reaming, chamfering on holes for you before heat treat, obviously, then you're taking good advantage of principles of automation. The other thing that some guys are doing is they're paying other makers who are more inclined to work with Kydex. Don't get me going on Kydex. Whole nother video on that topic. Long story short, you really do need to make Kydex work for you. But you can also apply the principle of automation to your sheaths, right? Like right now, a lot of guys are getting Josh over at Offensive Industries to make sheaths. And that is a great leverage, right? Pull that lever hard. Get Josh to make... I only see good things coming out of Josh's shop, so I can only, I haven't heard anything bad. He seems like a good dude. I see his work continue to improve, and I see more and more of his sheaths out there, so I can only assume that he's doing good things. So kudos to you, Josh, and that's just one example of somebody that I know of that is making sheaths for other guys. So, if you need sheaths done, by all means, hit up Josh or whoever and pull that lever, right? You want to leverage the principles of automation. I'm going to say it and say it and say it again. You only have so much time in the day, and vertical integration is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of vertical integration. Now, in case you don't know, vertical integration means that you have all the processes stacked in one source or one place, right? So if I'm vertically integrated, I do it all, right? Now there's some assumptions. If you're vertically integrated, it doesn't mean you're making the steel, right? And it's generally accepted that maybe you're not making the fasteners and things like that, but you're doing the bulk of the processing. So you buy everything in its kind of useful form and then finish it from there, right? Because most of the stuff we do is basically a conversion process, right? You buy the steel, you convert it into a knife. It's like injection molding. They buy the pellets and they convert it into whatever the end user product is, right? So knife making is, generally speaking, a conversion process. I haven't heard anyone talk about it that way, but that's essentially what it is, right? You buy the plastic for $1 a pound, you injection mold it into a thing, and then you sell for $20 a pound, right? So you're just converting it for an upcharge. And that's exactly what we do with Kydex for sheaths, steel for blades, G10 micarta, etc. for handles. So knife making is essentially a conversion process. So the vertical integration is kind of a sidetrack, but I think it's important to make that available as part of the conversation because it'll get referred to from time to time. So you've got the principles of automation, they don't end there, right? Like in my own shop, I use the tumbler extensively. If you think I'm standing there deburring everything, you're crazy. Way too many blades. Pardon me, I'm bloody exhausted. There's way too many blades. Way too many blades. I am not hand deburring everything. And furthermore, I like what a tumbler does to a blade. I like the finish it provides. I really like a nice stone wash, but I don't apply that. Generally, I just use it for, breaking the edges, knocking off the burrs, providing a somewhat uniform finish. I try to make everything very utilitarian and truthfully, all those beautiful stone wash finishes that you see, it's actually a lot of work goes into that, right? And I'm not saying that it's not worth it. I'm just saying that don't or underestimate how much labor actually goes into that, right? They're all finished to a certain spec, whether it's grit or whatever, however they're finishing them, and then they're blasted, right? They're blasted and then they're tumbled, right? You have to put down the right base, like foundational finish to put the stonewash finish over. So, people think, oh, this is easy. Well, it is good from a bulk finishing perspective, but there's actually a lot of labor involved, right? If you look at Guy at Survive Knives, they're doing a beautiful job of it over there. But man, the labor is around the clock, right? You have to think hard before you commit to doing like a beautiful stonewash finish on everything. So they're doing a great job of it over there. I've been watching closely, and hats off to them. They're killing it, right? So their success is well deserved. They've been at it a very long time. It's an interesting, for any maker, really, that's an interesting little history lesson. Go check out, kind of the trajectory that they took to get, where they're going. Okay, kiddo, thank you. So yeah, the principles of automation. Just thinking through my process. I chose to buy a laser so in my area, getting the lasering done was actually very problematic. I know that's not the case everywhere. And I had all kinds of people interested in doing it, I'm not trying to be rude here, but they all seemed like hacks. Have fun. The junior staffers are running about. So I really wanted to send the lasering out because I had one of those. I actually had, I still have it. I have a very nice electrochemical etching unit. It's like top of the line. I can actually add um, automation to it, so it'll run itself, which is wild. Um, Probably just gonna sell it. I bought that because at the time it seemed like the thing I wanted to do. So I'm not gonna get into that too much. Lots of guys are running them. You can make them. You can find some pretty good, pretty good values on them. In hindsight, I'm not sure I would have bought it. But anyways, I wanted to put logos on, and I had some OEM work I needed to do that required logos. So it definitely paid off. But I had to stand there, and it was 3 or 4 minutes per side, not just per blade, but per side, right? So it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. I'm not a stand there kind of guy, right? Like I'm having trouble sitting still right now to do this video. And 3 4 minutes per side on 100 blades, in a run or more. Jeez, it's terrible. So a little while back I bought a nice fiber laser, and I mean, I don't regret that at all. I put a part in, I push the button, I go away, do something else, I come back. I basically just, quite often I'll actually just set my phone for however many minutes it is until it's done. And that way my phone goes off. And if I'm nearby, I'll just pop over and flip apart and press go. So the marking of logos on parts now actually happens much less painfully. So much less painfully. And I'm doing everything around 3 thou deep, right? So 0.003 inches deep. And I like that. I give them a rub. Sorry. I give them a rub on the emery paper on the surface plate, and then toss them in the tumbler quick after that, and everything comes out pretty nice. And that bit of automation that I purchased, man, night and day. So much, life is so much better. So let's back up a bit. In my own shop, I've applied the principles of automation. The first thing I did was I bought a CNC mill, a small one. I had a very small tabletop years back. And that was fantastic. I used it for doing, cutting out 2D profiles on knives. And I did quite a few bevels actually too. And I did some engraving with like a scratch engraver. So I had a spring-loaded diamond-tipped scratch engraver. That did a nice clean job. And what else did I do? I had 2 small tumblers, like brass tumblers, and I did more like polishing in them. Because at the time I was doing more, like pretty stuff. I don't do that anymore. And so I ended up selling those. And then I bought the next CNC mill. And actually, that's not even true. I bought a heat treat. I was sending my blades out for heat treat early on. So, principle of automation, CNC mill, which was huge, right? And then I got the heat treat not too soon, but shortly after that. And that was great to be able to do the heat treating. And fortunately for me, I had experience in the machining and the heat treat from working in the trade, right? So it was actually a very easy transition for me. Whereas for some guys, it's quite a learning curve, right? Whereas for me, it was just set up and go. What was the next thing I did? I bought a larger CNC mill. It was the Tormac, and I ended up selling the other mill. It was the Micro Proto DSLS 3000, I think it was. So pretty light, but I managed to get quite a bit of work out of it. And Tormac, though, I mean, Tormac makes that thing look like the toy that it is in most people's opinions. And Tormac was a game changer for me. Loads of work coming through that thing still. And I ran that pretty hard, and the even heat. And I got to the point where kind of the bottleneck was sharpening, right? So I bought a Tormec sharpener, and that's not a principle of automation. That's just a kind of a quality of life improvement, right? I just set it up, and I just left it set up, right? So as long as you're sharpening a bunch of the same thing, it's quite easy, right? And just it makes it so even when you're in a state of fatigue, like I am right now, it's hard to screw things up, right? So it's a huge quality of life thing. And then from there, I found I was having quite a bottleneck with the sharpening. So I did some research and realized I should actually have a CBN wheel on it. Man, that cut my sharpening time way down. But you have to be careful. You can't just dive in. You have to be careful because, well, the roughing wheel that I have a 60 grit CBN roughing wheel. That thing is killer. Just eats it, right? So you can do a lot of damage in a hurry, but it gets your sharpening time down into single digit minutes easy, right? And so again, not principles of automation, just quality of life improvement, right? It's just a smarter choice. So that was kind of nice. And then all the while we're scoping out and gunning for opportunities to apply a principle of automation. So the next thing for me was tumbling, and at the same time I was looking at the laser. So I did a pile of research, and it turns out that actually local to me is the Vibrafinish plant. So I got the great big, looks like a chest freezer. It's huge. I've had up to 300 tools in there at a time, and that's just depends on what you've got, right? Because if you got like a bunch of ring blades, they can get all tangled up, or if you've got some really kind of fine tipped stuff, you can get actually damaged. So you have to be careful how much of what you load in there. So generally I don't go up that high, but I have had up to 300 parts in there, which is fantastic, right? So I've got that thing. It's actually the same one that John Grimsmo's got, and I think he has two of them now. So it's a testament to how well they work. It's got the ability to have a divider in it, and I am running the divider. And one of the things that John did is he put like a paper filter unit on it, so it kind of runs like a grinder coolant filtration setup, which is brilliant, but I just don't have room for that. So I do a bit more housekeeping to kind of make that run well. And so yeah, that was a huge quality of life and application of a principle of automation, right? That tumbler. So I recommend you get yourself a tumbler as soon as it's practical. You can't be handling every little detail like that. It just isn't. Life's too short, right? So then right around the same time came the fiber laser, and I touched on it earlier. That was fantastic. So, principle of automation, you can literally, pay someone to do the tumbling. I got quotes around here in Ontario where I am. People were quoting about $300 to like run a load. I don't feel good about doing that. I feel like, your blades can rust. Your blades can get dinged up. They can get bent. pardon me. They can get under processed. It's just all kinds of funny stuff that can go on there that I think most of us rather skip, right? So I opted to just buy the tumbler. That was a fairly meaningful investment, but also massively improved things for me, right? So I haven't applied anything recently other than I did pay to have some CAD done because I thought, why? It's just simple stuff that I don't have really. I don't have to do it. Certain stuff like design wise, I do it because how do you outsource that, right? Because it's my design. But for other things, just outsource it, right? Until you get big enough to have like a full time CAD guy, just outsource what you can, and there's your automation, right? Um, so what's next for me? For me, the next investment into automation is probably going to be another CNC mill, probably, right? I'm not entirely sure. I'm kind of toying around with some ideas, but if you wanted to and you knew the right people, there's a lot of things you can do. You can get, if you know someone who's good at sharpening, you can get them to do your sharpening. Boom, it's automated, right? We mentioned getting somebody to do your sheaths. If you're having your handles wrapped, you could get somebody to wrap them, right? This is the kind of stuff people can do, like in the evening while they watch TV, right? Like I've wrapped thousands of tools at our kitchen table, right? So my wife is watching, whatever she's watching in the living room, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table wrapping. And that way we can talk. But I'm getting my thing done, she's doing her thing. And, that's not a principle of automation. That's just kind of a, quality of life thing. You don't want to be absent, right? So you can certainly kind of leverage your time that way. But yeah, if you know someone who's handy and industrious, put them to work, right? If they do good quality work, pay them. Get them to do your handle wraps, get them to make your sheaths, get them to do your assembly. If you have like a bunch of hardware that needs to be dealt with, maybe it needs to be all sorted and put in baggies and staged for, it needs to be staged for, so you can put, this little baggie of hardware goes with this clip, with this sheath, that kind of stuff. Pay somebody to do it, right? If you've got kids that are like wanting to do that kind of stuff, trade something, right? Like the fastest I ever saw a box of mailers get stickered was my youngest. She just ripped through it. It was wild. I don't use mailers hardly anymore, right? But back when I used to use a pile of mailers, we would put the airmail stickers on them in advance because it helped out the folks at the post office. So we would just get a box of mailers in and we would just go through and slap the airmail stickers on. And I can't remember, it was a box of 100 or more, and she just had it done in no time. I was super impressed. But yeah, always be on the lookout for people who are industrious and put them to work, right? You're helping everybody. If they want to make some money and they like to be busy and they, want something to do, you probably have something that you need help doing. So that's kind of an easy way to apply some automation to your life. It's like I said earlier, it's kind of like paying someone to do your taxes. I think that's pretty much everything I've got on my mind right now with regards to that specifically. But yeah, just think about what you could possibly get something done while you're not doing it, right? Like you could be at your day job and your blades are getting water jet cut and they're getting heat treated. And then, later after you've done everything to them, they could be dropped off. Maybe between your home and work is a a place that does lasering or Cerakote, or maybe there's a place that'll do sheaths, right? Like if you're out in Josh's neck of the woods, you drop your blades off, right? Get them to sheath them. You know, just be creative, right? Look at how you can solve your problems and help somebody else. Like generally people don't think about things too disruptively. Try to get outside the box at the very least. If you can think disruptively about it, that's great. But disruptive is like when everybody's digging for gold, you sell the shovels, right? So I'm saying just think a little bit differently than everybody else. And at the very least, try to think different than you normally do, right? Just challenge yourself to think about different ways to solve the problems that you have. And one of the ways that I'm suggesting is think about somebody else's needs first. And you might be surprised at what kind of help you can get, because I can't remember who said this. The quickest way to get what you want is to help other people get what they want. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Because ultimately, regardless of your belief system, I think you'll probably agree that we're all here to provide value to one another in exchange for value, right? So for me as a Christian, we're all here to serve Christ, and we do that by serving our fellow man and treating each other that we would like to be treated, and acknowledging that everything that we do is ultimately unto God. So that's kind of where a lot of this perspective comes from. If you have any questions, maybe you find a gap in between, all these examples that I've given. Maybe your situation's a little bit unusual or different, or maybe just in my fatigue state, I've missed something. By all means, shoot me a message, and I'm happy to bounce some ideas around. So, and then in closing, I really appreciate it if you would, drop your comments, like I said, but also subscribe to the channel, right? It really helps me to know who's watching, and it helps with the algorithm. And also, if you really need some help with this kind of stuff and you're struggling and you're like, what, I'm moving a good handful of blades every month and I need to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers, pump those numbers up. Some of you will get that reference. If you find yourself in that situation, then maybe you might be interested in talking to me further. You can book a call and we can talk about whether you're a good candidate for the FLC Knives Dynamic Growth Accelerator. And something interesting is coming. So this is kind of, if you've waited this long and hung in the video, this is what you get for your efforts and putting the time in, because I appreciate you. There's going to be, each month, there's going to be a scholarship made available for a slot in the one-on-one mentorship program within the FLC Knives Dynamic Growth Accelerator. So I know for some of you that'll be quite interesting. So for now, hit me up with your questions. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. And go out there and keep on crushing it. We'll see you in the next one.